Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. Listen up, here we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 61 of No Spin Rodeo. I'm Tommy Joe Lucia. I'm joined with Kendra Santos, First Lady of Pro Rodeo Journalism, and the wizard of all things technical, Greg Teagarden. Thank you guys for joining us. I want to start this show out right away, just off at the top of the show, with an apology. So all of you No Spinners that are watching us live on YouTube or podcasting us later in the front seat of your Prius or pickup, listen up and hang in there. In reflecting a little bit, you see, I've always used the line, perception is reality. And you hear that a lot, but you need to think about it a little bit, and so do I. What that means is that it really does matter. It really doesn't matter what you mean when you say something to someone. It actually matters how those that are listening interpret what you say. And that goes in family life, in anything. We should all maybe slow down our tongue a little bit, take a moment to be conscious of how what we are saying may make others feel. In the last episode, I talked about some details concerning the Roy Cooper family as it related to Roy's passing, and I shouldn't have done that. I should not have, nor will I ever again discuss anything, fact or not, by the way, that is a part of any family's personal lives. I have instructed Greg to remove and strike any of those comments that I've made from the earlier show. She won't see that stuff, and that's why. The truth is, it's none of any of our business what the family's going through, or what's going on, and it shouldn't be a part of any professional discussion. So here's the last thing I'll say on this, and then I'm moving on, and that is our forefathers, they worked hard to develop a system where that people are innocent until they're proven guilty. But today, in what I call the court of social media, of AI, of fake news, all that's not the case anymore. And I personally apologize that if any of my statements may have been weaponized or caused anybody any additional emotion, sadness, or pain, that wasn't my intent, okay? And I can assure you that Tommy Joe Lucia will never go there again. So take my apologies and lesson learned. Okay, now that's off my chest. Hello, guys. Kendra, how about a little rodeo news? Got anything for us?
Sure. I guess what's on my mind at this moment is just that sometimes silence is wisdom. I don't know why, but that's on my heart at this moment. Anyway, on Sunday, June 1st, we're recording this episode 61 on June 3rd. On Sunday, we lost Cody Bill Smith, a wonderful cowboy, a wonderful guy, one of our legends. He a three-time world champion saddle bronc rider, 1969, 71, and 73. He was the champ of the world and went to 13 NFRs. Cody Bill was part of the inaugural class of 1979 at the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame in Colorado Springs. He received the very coveted, prestigious Ben Johnson Award at the National Rodeo Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City in 2012. And it actually honored me that the person who let me know was Clint Johnson. And, Clint Johnson is a 4-time world champion, just one of the classiest, coolest cowboys ever. And Clint Johnson's words to me were, he said, Bill Smith was the greatest bronc rider I've ever seen. And that's a tall compliment from someone like Clint Johnson. So rest in peace, Cody Bill. Love and prayers from the whole rodeo family to your family. His brother Rick, his wife Carol, all of the Smith family. Rest in peace. Great cowboy. And I think somebody who really did our sport really proud. So a saddle bronc riding director, just an all-around great guy. So God bless Cody Bill Smith. On a lighter note, we just had the Music City Rodeo over the weekend in Nashville. And I thought I'm told that there have been rodeos in Nashville before. I think that there have been some scuttles and some, contentious conversations online about the fact that perhaps it was claimed to be the first rodeo in Nashville, which I'm told by a number of sources that's not true. But my sources say it's the first professionally sanctioned by the PRCA. So that's what my sources say. If they're wrong, I apologize. That's what I understand. I'm going to whip through, hit the high notes of who won everything. And I'm going to say up front that I think it's cool. I don't know who all signed the guitars that the champs got, but I thought prize. I know Houston does that. These looked like something that, when you walk down the street in Broadway in Nashville, and you go into, the different bars and all these people trying to make it, right? And this is the kind of guitar. It's not as fancy as the ones at Houston, but it's the kind that you'll see those people that are trying to make it in Nashville strumming as they're singing, trying to get their big break. So Stetson Wright was the all-around champ, and I would just note that he's back to, he's back obviously, and is number one in the world with 146,000 to Wasey Shawla's 111. And so far in the early going of 2025, it does appear to be shaping up to be pretty hotly contended at the livestock end of the arena again. And so, okay, Sam Peterson won the bareback riding. Rowdy Parrott from Louisiana, who's big into the crawfish business these days, won the bulldogging. My little buddy Cody Snow and his partner Hunter Cook won the team roping. Sage Newman won the bronc riding. Tough Cooper, he won the calf roping. He was out the first night. I got to watch it. He was 7-2 right after his dad's send off, just like he won San Antonio, for his Mimi the day she died in February, also 7-2. Whether or not these things are coincidence, I don't know. But okay, the barrel race was won by Mackenzie Mays and her horse Rousey, who, by the way, we've all just spent a lot of time for various reasons. I was 2 weeks in a row at Cowtown. Mackenzie Mays and her little horse, sorrel horse Rousey, they own the Cowtown Arena record. So that's kind of fun. They won Nashville. And Wasey Shawla, who's given Stetson a run for his money, he won the bull riding. He was 88 on Corco's Wasted Nights. And just using him as an example, he won about $8,300. So, that's legit. And in that bull riding race, he's currently number one. TJ Gray is number 2, and Stetson Wright is number 3. But remember, folks, like Wasey Shawla is 19 years old. And so that's, there's no telling, what we're going to see out of this kid. And so he's already a proven commodity at 19. So anyway, the last thing I was going to mention that's happening right at this moment in Vegas is that there's a pretty cool cowboy gathering, multi-generational cowboy gathering going on in Vegas right now. The Las Vegas Events has called for a photo shoot with the reigning world champs and the first ever crop of Vegas world champs from 1985. And as the man in my life. Oh, Barry is what, won his first world championship in '85. He's one of them. So he was telling me that they all caught a bus at the South Point last night, and they went to the Las Vegas sign, and it was all cleared out. So it was all the world champs had the Vegas sign all to themselves from 10 to 10:30 last night, and pretty cool. Jake Barnes and Clay O'Brien Cooper they're like my brothers, and they were the team roping champs. Brad Jermanson, a dear friend. Joe Beaver won the calf roping that year, a dear friend. Ted Noose won the bull riding that year. And, Louis Field, at the first NFR I worked in '87, he was still the man. But in '85, the first year in Vegas, he won both the bareback riding and the all around. And I thought it was really touching. Casey came and showed up on his dad's behalf, and he brought Louis, I believe it was his world all around champ from '85, or saddle from '85. Wow. And in that picture, as like a placeholder for in Louis' memory, they had his saddle with white flowers on it. And I thought that was really, really classy. And before we get feedback on people wondering about the mathing on it being 40 years, don't stub your toe like I did, because I'm like, wait a minute, isn't this 41? No, it's because 2020 was in Texas. So 85 to 2025 is 40. And just on a side note, I'm very honored to be working on a big 40 years in Vegas project for Las Vegas events with my old amigo, Jeff Metters right now. So it's a big one, and it's a fun one. And it's really cool. You know how much I love rodeo history. So we're having a good time doing some good work. So there's that. Anyway.
That's cool. That's cool. I bet that bus ride was pretty fun.
I bet so.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. Great news. The only thing that I saw that I thought was really interesting, the PBR, and I assume this is probably part of the relationship with TKO and their bigger body of partners, but they struck a deal with COSM, COSM, which I think is interesting. And I don't know all of the details, but 5 of their team events this summer are going to be broadcast in these COSM theaters. Now, it says here that COSM will produce the feed shown on its wraparound LED domes using 5 specialty cameras. I think that's really cool, because I hope that I'm around when the NFR is simulcasts in the Sphere. Would that not be cool to sit in the Sphere and watch an NFR performance? So that would be pretty cool. So PBR continues to kind of do some cool things. This sounds like a really cool thing. I don't know if it's a 3D type thing. I have to do a little more research, but they did release that they are doing that, and I think that's an interesting way to put out the bull riding product, and maybe some people will experience it without having to get on. So, well, thank you for the news, Kendra. Thanks. So what we're just going to do today is we're going to make this a feedback day. Once again, if you're sending us any feedback that has to do with anything that I said at the top of the show, you're probably not going to see it. So here we go. Greg, this is your chance to screw up to read it to us, what the feedback is. So you are on it. Go.
All right. Here we go. Our first feedback. Agreed, Kendra Santos. You are right. Nobody wants a tie in the Super Bowl, but a contestant wants a fair shake with no bias. A fan has never had to pay a bill with a rodeo check. This has to be about the contestant, period. Without them, there is no rodeo. If there is a tie, so be it. The time needs to be as accurate as possible to be fair to each contestant. And I, as a fan, if 2 contestants tie, I want to know. I absolutely agree. Sorry, I had to change
I'm
the thing.
sorry.
I absolutely agree with Kendra. I'm getting the feeling of late that rodeo is heading in a slanted direction. The sport is beginning to look like it's going to go the way of fans and not the competitors. Not sure how you could take the human error out when the human is dropping the flag or hitting the stopwatch. The point being, it is impossible for them to always be absolutely consistent in their reaction.
All right, Kendra, you want to go first or you want me to? I have a sneaking suspicion that we will professionally disagree on this. But what's your thought on the feedback, and then I'll rant a little bit.
Well, I mean, I spoke my piece about this in the last episode as far as my feeling about ties, and I said what I had to say. I ultimately, I guess, what can I say? I'm a cowboy girl, and by the way, I'm a cowgirl girl too, and I did notice that there was no breakaway roping at Nashville. No further comment about that, but I did notice that. I'm 5 generations deep now, on the contestant side. So that's not to say that I don't respect, appreciate, and realize that, committees, stock contractors, sponsors, fans, everybody is, very, very important. But I am pretty hardcore, old school, like, the Cowboys, Turtles got together, to make things fair for the contestants. And I feel like, the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association was formed to represent its contestant members, but I do not send feedback saying that, saying that stock contractors and contract personnel are not members. Of course they are. And it takes everyone to make the wheel go round. So don't come at me like that. But as far as, I already spoke my piece. I don't feel the need to rehash how I feel about 100ths of a second when you have flaggers and timers. I already said what I felt. So.
Okay, well, I'm neutral on, I do think fans want to see a winner, but the fans may, in recognition of this feedback, they may want to see a tie. I think the technology is there that if someone ties with 1,000th of a second, then they deserve to tie. My question is, do you take it that far? And we've already hashed that over, not going again. Now, here's where I do have a little bit to say on this feedback. Here's the reality of the business model in entertainment and in rodeo, as with other sports. It takes the fans coming so that the sponsors can sell their products to the fans, and that's how revenue's generated to increase prize money. And so if you're not interested in taking into account how your product is being received and trying to improve it, then really all you want to have is jackpots.
Well, I don't think that I or anyone else has said that we're not interested in fans or anything. So I don't think we should twist it around.
Oh, I didn't twist it. I'm just saying that if your only true north is what the competitors need, you're probably going to inhibit the growth of the sport, if that were your case, anybody's case.
Well, you know what? Let me just throw out a random example, because I'm not blind, deaf, and dumb, and compromise is needed, at times. When it comes to, for example, the tie-down roping, which we call tie-down roping because of, for reasons dictated beyond the people in our actual sport. But when you want to talk about like some of the rules about, what are going to be infractions, what should be infractions, and different things like that, and I'm talking about the jerk down, this is a whole different of course we need to entertain the conversation as we continue to evolve, but it was one conversation in Dean Oliver's day when they were roping honkers, and it's another conversation. I mean, you've seen the old pictures. You think you just want to spin those around? And by comparison, the old timers call today's calves goats. Okay, so it's a very different event. So of course we're going to evolve with the times, and that's reasonable. And that has to do with the fans. That has to do with the very survival of our sport. And so that's reasonable compromising, and it, you know, it makes sense. Hey, there are plenty of calf ropers today who would love to have calves twice the size as they are, but you know, I think everybody understands that some things are evolving. And you know what we should be talking about one of these days? We should talk about the price of timed event cattle. Let's save that for another day. But holy smokes, when I'm told that the roping steers are bringing 1,600 around because the border's closed, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm just saying, you don't have to disrespect or dislike any of the entities of the wheel that it takes all of them to make it all go round and work and succeed and thrive and grow, is my opinion. You don't have to.
None of us have a job if fans don't attend the events.
Everybody loves fans. Everybody loves fans.
So, okay. Well, sounds good. I mean, I think we've always said this, that there's a balance in this, right? I mean, you know, there's a balance in what the players have to do on the field and to make it safe and competition whole and good. And in our sport, which is different in other sports, we respect our traditions, and so do I. I respect the traditions, but at the same time, I will be hard pressed to not believe that the success of our endeavor rests in continuing to create new fans for this sport. So
I don't think anyone's going to argue with that.
Well, but you may not. You might say that, oh yeah, you're right, we got to have new fans, but sometimes that's some tough decisions along the way, right? So, and that's fine. You know, it's a case by case basis. So I think we're good. We both, this is us. So it's all good. Greg, what's the next one?
Well, I had a question about this one real quick. So I kind of got the impression that this wasn't so much about the accuracy as the fact that just the way the money gets paid out, and if it's better to have ties if you're a contestant as opposed to, you know, being able to have a winner and no ties, because I feel with ties the money gets kind of spread out a little bit more. Am I wrong thinking that?
I'll give you an example. Say if a rodeo, if first pays 50 grand and second pays 25 grand, well, if you're a contestant, okay, you're going to take the 75,000 that first and second pays, and you're going to divide it by 2. That's how a tie is going to pay off. Now, that's the point about doing it by the 100th, because in my personal view, you know, you tied. So you're going to tell me that you're going to send the 2 people who tied historically, you're going to send one home with 50 grand and one home with 75 grand? That's my point. There's a big difference.
There is indeed, and that's a valid point. But the technology exists to say who did it faster. Okay.
All right. The next one comes from the 405. I was told Cheyenne was making some adjustments in their format. Is that the case?
Yeah, so I did some research on this, and I called the big boy. If he's listening to this, he knows who he is. Said, you guys making any format changes up there in Cheyenne? He said, no, sir. Team open slack will be a little earlier, but that's about it. So there are no format changes in the legendary rodeo at Cheyenne. Now, Kendra, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but that's what I was told from the person that would be making the decision with his team. Mr. Hersey.
I don't know any facts on it, so I won't add anything. Thanks.
So there's your answer, 405. Nope. Same format, same game, same great Cheyenne.
All right, next No Spinners from Ontario. I'm from Ontario, Canada, and love the podcast. Really enjoy listening to it. I'm not sure if this has been brought up before, but why don't rodeos use the electronic barrier? It seems to me it would save time, save timers having to start the timer. Just wondering the reasoning.
Great question.
I got this. It's a grand coincidence that I just had this exact conversation. When we're talking about electric eyes, that is this person's question, right? Why don't we use electric eyes? Okay.
The electric barriers, which they use at the World Series, right? The electronic barriers.
Yes, I'm going to answer this question out of I'm going to quote a many-time national finalist who I greatly respect. When it comes to electric eyes, it's just lazy. Too much error. They had heck with it at Sheridan the year they tried it, and at Pecos the year they tried it there. Sometimes it doesn't work and won't release the pigtail, causing you to break out, and most judges aren't savvy enough to recognize you didn't break out. Sunny versus shade affects it. Also, depending on event and size of animals and their stride when they cross the line, it could trigger off their head, shoulders, knee, whatever. Not simple answer, but stick with tradition and use a 5-cent piece of cotton string to tie the neck rope on. Have 10 neck ropes and it won't slow production down. Not only does getting out or breaking the barrier matter, but also when the time starts, when the time starts matters when 4 flat wins first and 4-6 wins $0. If an eye malfunctions and pulls the barrier early, you have no chance before you leave the box. That's a fabulous exact answer to this. That is the Cowboys' answer.
Well, I would just wonder, they're giving away, how many millions of dollars do they give away at the World Series?
7 or 8 million, I think. Or no, they might be up to 10 by now.
Yeah, and you wonder if those people question the validity of that barrier, that electronic barrier. I'm not, hold on, Kendra, I'm not saying that what you said or read from the Cowboys way is, I have zero data on the accuracy of the electronic barrier. I'll say this, it's a skill and an art, and the Cowboys, some of the no spinners that maybe aren't like up to their earballs in rodeo stuff, there's an art to getting into that barrier that 100th of a second, which shouldn't matter, and not breaking it. And I think it adds a whole new layer. The thing that could be considered is if you leave that piece of rope up there, but you take out a timer on the other end of the arena, watching a red flag. Like, these are things you have to contemplate. Could you still have a rope barrier and still start a clock and still do everything? Now, there's no way you'd have to flag the completion of the event because there's no way to electronically do that. So again, you just need to you need to continue to look at new technology instead of just riding down the sunset of tradition, and see if there's anything that is actually lends itself to being practical, fair, and doesn't break tradition. I have zero problem with a regular barrier. Like, I think it has a whole level of coolness when we're showing a super slow-mo instant replay of a horse hitting that barrier, and you're watching it, and it's micro million hundred thousandths of a second from either a broken barrier or them getting out. And it's all the stretch of that barrier, and that's cool.
And also, when you see, when you watch a rodeo and you see all the guys that haven't gone yet all around the box, they're watching the start. And so, it does make it a lot easier. How close can you get to it? How much is this one going to stretch? Somebody and guys watching it happens plenty of times too. The barrier didn't work. And, I saw that happen just the other day. And, rodeo and its camaraderie or whatever, everybody wants the best man to win here. So other guys will step forward and say, no, it didn't work that time or whatever it is. But you also can, gauge your best start and see how close did that guy get to it, because if you're really late or if you're too early, you're not going to win anything. So it is an absolute art, scoring is. And so being able to see physically, okay, and you see some guys, pull to the line or whatever, but
what do you mean by pull to the line for those of us that are not?
A guy might sit in the corner, see his start, and then blast. Or, some guys will kind of throttle to the line.
I see.
You go somewhere like Salinas, where there's a really long barrier, the longest one in rodeo, and guys will kind of start. There's a styrofoam cup out there, and guys will kind of start because that's the average start. Well, then they might have to throttle back and pick their horse up a little bit, or they're going to break it. But you couldn't tell that on these shoot run steers until you saw, he started slow. So the average start is on the average steer. Well, if they haul ass or if they're slow, you've got to react. You've got to leave sooner, or you've got to throttle back. So anyway.
Well, and that's some of the stuff that, we need to do a better job for the fans, right? Of highlighting that level of detail during competition, whether it's on a broadcast or live. Because I remember the first time we did IndyCar race, and I didn't even know which direction they went when we were producing it. At the very first time, I was just like, this is really, really noisy and goes for 12 hours. And by the end of my run at IndyCar, when I had learned similar things to what you're saying in that sport, where you've got these tires that are going 220 miles an hour open, right? NASCAR, they can bump, but these tires, if they touch each other, someone is airborne. And it changes your level of respect for the competition, and it also engages your interest in the sport. And the stuff that you're saying is very, very interesting, and we should probably do a better job of highlighting those nuances as they're happening in real time, and it'll create more fans, spend more money, get more sponsors. Okay, sorry.
Well, on the flip side of the electronic timing, I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but the PBR and at the for the barriers for the recent team event, that was all AI. They use AI to watch the horses coming out, and they can tell when it breaks the barrier just by using a camera and some software.
And how accurate do you think that was?
Well, I mean, they're going on a clock start, so I feel it's going to be pretty accurate, and you're not really wanting to break the barrier in that sense at those events anyways, because you obviously want to give the animal a little bit of a head start. Otherwise, you guys are going out at the same time. So it's not as important. The barrier, I don't think, plays that much of a factor in that. The Kid Rock rodeo, I mean, all you have to do is go back and watch they show the runs side by side. Go back and watch Dakota Eldridge and Jesse Brown in the final in a final deal. There's no barrier there. So once the gate opens, you gotta go. Well, their steers just happen to check off, right, or whatever. But it's pretty hard, especially a bull-legging horse. Those babies fly at a standing start. They fly. Well, if one checks off or checks to the right or whatever, you're gonna blast past it. So, but I mean, you can't break out there, right? I mean, that's you can't. I mean, if you hit the barrier before the clock goes, you're gonna break. Like if you're trying to time it.
But before you're allowed to go, but before your stoplight turns green.
Yeah,
which is so if you're worried about hundredths and tenths of a second, but it depends on when your eye sees the green light or the seconds countdown.
That's a whole different beast.
Yes, and I think I like the rope barrier because it's so it's physical. You can see it. We do the World Series of team roping, and we do thousands of runs under electronic barrier, and the only time it's exciting is, I guess, when you hear the horn of them breaking out. So, but you never know, and it's just I feel the barrier's way more of a show.
Well, I don't know, because you don't know that they broke the barrier till they announce the time, and in the World Series, once it breaks, it adds 10 seconds immediately to it. I mean, most of us, unless you watch a million runs like Kendra, you don't have a sense if they broke the barrier, right? I mean, some of them are obvious, right? But I'm talking about the close ones. It's hard to. There's times I'm like, oh, really? Man, I thought he pushed it just enough. So
straight up, we were talking about rodeo here, and we're not, please, not one criticism about the World Series. Okay, I work for the crew. We're not saying one bad thing about anything to do with the World Series and how they do it. Good for them. We're talking about.
I think they have to use an electronic barrier. They can't do a rope barrier there because there's just the amount of people that run through there, having to retie and put a rope around a cow or a steer. They have to use electronic barrier to keep that thing rolling. And it's been great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it at all.
Okay, I'm barriered out. What's the next one?
Let's see. The next one is from the 702. I have a question. Kendra, do you and Tommy Joe disagree on most everything? Just wondering. I mean, I'm sure you both like ice cream.
Do we really come off? You people will be happy to know that Kendra and I actually talk. Like, it's not as, and we're not putting on a show, but that's sad, Kendra. Our fans are asking if we actually ever get along.
We've said 10,000 times, we agree to disagree a lot, and we do share a mutual respect. Are we very, very different people? Yes, we are.
Well, and if more people in this world, including the people up there, that run the country, if they would respect and listen to each other's opinions and contemplate, self-reflect, it might be helpful. But however.
Okay, let me say this on this. Did they say something about, do you both like ice cream? Let me just say this. Yes, I like ice cream, and I'm a banana split girl. And you can say whatever you want to say about ice cream, but when my dad bulldogged at Salinas all those years ago, every day he was up in the bulldogging, our family went across the road to Baskin Robbins and got banana splits or whatever the ice cream store was. And I'm a 2 scoops of vanilla, 1 scoop of strawberry. On the vanilla, we're going to put pineapple on one, and we're going to put chocolate on one. On the strawberry, we're going to put strawberry. And I don't like chocolate ice cream. I love a banana split. And during the NFR, you will find Oat and I at, is it called Kitty's Corner at the South Point?
Yep.
And the great tradition that we had was meeting Dick and Jan Yates there, which every time we see Dick, we head over and we get ice cream, because I'd rather have a banana split than a cocktail personally, but whatever.
Okay, so here's what I thought I would do, since our fans really want to know if we're compatible, right? They want to know if we're compatible.
We don't have to.
Well, you see this. It's already driving her batty. Hang in there, fans. So I sent to Greg a short 10-question compatibility test that I'm going to ask Greg to answer us, that will tell us if we're compatible in what, like, for instance, if we can't get any of these right, basically it says we should not be in a room with a sharp object together. So at the end of the day, if you're willing, Kendra, look at her roll her eyes. She just hates this kind of stuff. Greg, ask the first question. Kendra, you answer first. I'll answer second. I'm sure you're going to probably have a lot of, let me get some more detail on this question, but that's okay. We'll try it.
All right, first question. If there's an orange and a cookie on a plate, which one do you pick up and eat?
Oh, for the love of. This one strikes a personal nerve. I don't know if you've been talking to my mother or not, but at Cal Poly, there's this thing of the Poly Dollies. They call it the freshman 15. I put on the freshman 50. Most of it had a lot to do with Madonna Inn and their bakery, but my mom specifically, there came a day that I'll never forget, and my grandmothers and myself, lifelong bakers. And so I'm 50 pounds into this BAM, like freshman 5-0. And my tiny little blonde Swedish mother says, well, maybe you should have an orange instead of that cookie. And it stuck with me all these years. So I'll take the cookie.
Okay, you got cookie. So mine takes a little bit of an explanation too. Prior to having throat cancer and getting treatment, my answer would have been cookie all day long. And however, interestingly enough, with the radiation and the chemo, it changes your taste. I also don't have as much saliva as I used to have. And so interestingly enough, in today's world, right now, as we sit asking this question, I'm probably going to eat the orange. I still like the cookie. I just need water with it because I don't have quite enough saliva. It's funny because when you don't have the saliva, the consistency and the flavor of things change. So first one, I go orange, you go cookie. Next one.
What's the most important subject in school, math or writing?
Also loaded for me. So I have a journalism degree. I have a master's degree in business, which comes complete with statistics, quantitative business analysis, calculus, and all this stuff. My teachers always told me that I was kind of a freak deal because I was both left and right brained. You know how one of those is for one and one's for the other? They were always like, you're both. This is so weird. So I don't know. Whatever. I will say this. I'll say if I have to pick one, in today's world, I'm going to say writing, because cool old handy math has basically been replaced anyway. And I when I kind of sit with like younger kids these days, and like there's new math and this and that, and I'm like, the math kids are being taught today isn't as just absolutely functional as the math I learned all those years ago, which is kind of weird. But the other thing is, I was tortured in college to memorize all these formulas and stuff. And I knew at the time that was silly because you would just punch that stuff into this fancy calculator and it would give you your answer anyway. And it's not practical to life. So I will say writing, and I will also say this as a journalist. It's really interesting to me that I think that writing, people who are getting communications, they call it communications now instead of journalism. Writing is a much lesser part of the curriculum. And I think, people have actually told me, here I'm a writer, that there will come a day when people will no longer read. And it's already, you can see it going to, little video clips and stuff because people's attention spans aren't very long or whatever. So I don't know, old school. But remember, folks, they're not even teaching kids cursive anymore. And I think, we should all know how to write cursive. I'm going to teach my grandkids cursive, but, whatever.
Okay, I will also go with writing, and here's my reason for that. Well, for one, I wasn't very good at math. Donna is. My boys are. I remember sitting in algebra and the teacher standing out there going, if y equals x, and the way my brain works is what is y, what is x, why are we saying y, why are we saying x, why can't we say what if I have $4, why do we have to have x and y? I know it's formulas and you plug it in, so I'm sure we'll get that kind of feedback. I agree with you. I would go with writing. Now, you're right that they had calculators back then. Even in my time, they were really big calculators, and Texas Instruments were the only ones that made them. But now with Chat GPT and Grok and all those things, you don't have to write either. You just put a few things in there and it writes it for you, Kendra. So there you have it.
You know what? My son Lane, who's actually a brilliant writer, he showed me down at the barn the other day. He plugged something in and showed me that, and I just, we're just going to get on so many derailments here, but it's like, I was thinking, like, when he told me that, I'm like, really? Um, it's reminiscent of this, and all these young kids today can't imagine that I grew up without cell phones. But, there is a lot to be said for the fact that when I was a kid and a boy called, he was very nervous because he knew that phone was on our kitchen wall, and he knew my dad was going to answer. But that's when you had manners. Kids were polite, and the boy also knew that my conversation with him, my whole family is going to be sitting there listening to it. Okay.
Well,
But
not only that, but the neighbor, because it was a party line. Jezebel down the road, she was taking notes the whole time.
No, my grandmother who lived out on the ranch, there was a party line. There was no party line when I was growing up, but I know they existed because I remember that from my grandmother. But I'm just saying, I think we've lost a lot of social grace with our quote progress, because it's not a bad thing for people to communicate face to face. So anyway.
So we're one and one going into question 3.
Side by side or motorcycle?
This is easy. Is a side by side is a Polaris, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, it could be any of them. But
well, that's the best prize my son Taylor ever won. He won a Polaris when he won the first NFR Open in the calf roping, and fabulous prize. I would take that all day long. The last time I was on a motorcycle, one of the rodeo photographers took me out on the highway. It was scorching hot, and he took me on like a thrill ride or whatever. And I was pretty sure we were going to die. He just thought would be a thrill for me. And it was horrifying, but I will take a ride in Taylor's Polaris. Thank you.
I agree. Side by side, motorcycles scare me, and the dudes that fly by you when you're on your way to the airport, 2,000 miles an hour, that think they're in some kind of Grand Prix, and I think they're going to die, scare the crap out of me. So side by side all day long, together 2, apart
2.
1. Here we go.
Easter or the 4th of July?
This one's not super easy. I will pick the 4th of July. More rodeos than I'm patriotic, but I do have very fond childhood memories of spending most of my Easters with my family at the Oakdale Rodeo, where my Uncle Russ was the arena director for many decades. And having been a cowboy, he like represented the old school ranch cowboys and former rodeo cowboy running rodeos, where he was like one of the first guys to have equal money in the team roping and things like that, because he was a cowboy. And so I have many fond memories from Easter of that. But I will say 4th of July, because it's rodeos and it's picnics and it's America.
I'm gonna go with Easter, and I'll tell you why. Most of my entire life, the 4th of July, I'm working. I can't even remember not working on the 4th of July. Easter's important to me because of my faith and my belief in Jesus. So that's a very important on my faith side, very, very important to me. But I also I have more vivid memories of Easter celebrations, right, than I do of 4th of July. Nothing against 4th of July. I think it's a great holiday. But I would pick Easter, so that puts us at 2 and 2. So we 4 questions in? 4.
And please don't anybody assume that I don't have a very strong faith, because I don't remember not having a very strong faith. So don't go there with me, please. Thank you.
All right, winter or summer?
Oh, this one's easy for me.
Yeah, me too. Summer, longer, warmer days, more rodeos, but summer. I love summer. If I had to pick one, if I had to pick a season, I've always said it would be spring, because everything's green and fresh, and cut grass, and the smell of rain and cut grass are my 2 favorite smells. So, but summer all day long.
Winter all day long, because I can put clothes on to get comfortable. I can't take enough clothes off to not violate some kind of civil law in that town when I'm sweating. So I go cool over hot any day. So there's where we're at. Next one.
Okay, I'll remember that in Denver this year. Burgers or salad?
Burger.
Now, this goes back to my cancer. Now, this is a tough one. I love a good burger, but I now actually love a good salad because of the moisture in it. So, in the sake of keeping this close, I'm going to go burger. We're 3-3.
Lonesome Dove or Top Gun?
Lonesome Dove.
Yeah, I'm going to go Lonesome Dove. And I think Top Gun's a great movie, and I like action movies. But Lonesome Dove, there were so many really strong, powerful messages in that flick. If you haven't seen it, if you're able to understand symbolism and things. So I'm going to go Lonesome Dove.
Hug or a handshake?
For me, it's a hug, but I mean, I don't hug people that I don't want to hug. But I kind of got COVID got pretty weird for me because I've been a person who hugs. You know, I come from my mom's a hugger, I'm a hugger of people I really adore. So when I see somebody, you know, I'm gonna hug them. If I shake your hand, it's because I'm, you know, telling someone I don't know that well, congratulations, probably, or something like that.
If I recall, when we saw each other in Vegas, I don't remember you hugging me. That's probably an indicator of the real base here. I don't know. That one's a tough one. I used to be all handshake. I'm a whole lot more hug now. But hug is hard. Hug can be hard. Like, how huggy do you hug? Like, I mean, that's like a limp handshake. I can't stand a handshake. Now, I also can't stand the I'm going to break your knuckles handshake because I'm a tough dude. Don't like that one either. I just like a nice, firm, I understand. So, I don't know. It's a 50-50 for me. I'm going to go probably, there's more people that I'm going to shake their hands than I'm going to hug. So I'm going to go handshake.
You know what? I can relate to that. And I'll just say this. If you're a man and you have a limp-wristed handshake, and for anybody who has the wrong idea to think that a woman wants a man to give a limp-wristed handshake because she's a girl or something, the answer is please do not ever do that. Be firm with your handshake.
Well, not only
Please.
firm with your handshake, but be firm with your word behind that handshake.
Yes.
Next one.
Water or tea?
This is a chuckler. You
better pick one. Well, you've drank more tea than water.
I'm the girl who on the airplane may ask for something with caffeine, but I always also ask for a water because I know we all need to hydrate. So this is a tricky one because, by the way, if you don't have water, you can't have iced tea. I'm an iced tea freak. That's what I love. Every once in a blue moon, and the other day I worked a rodeo and they had iced tea and I was so excited. I took a swig and it was like syrup. It was sweet. Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, horrific. I love iced tea.
Alabama sweet tea. It's really not tea. It's really jam.
So I'd rather drink iced tea. Is that the question? What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, tea or water? Tea, yeah.
Hey, iced tea.
And I'm a water guy. I like iced tea. It's my second, but my first is water. So we are now 5 notches apart and 4 notches together, and we're on our final question. Lay it
Beach or the mountains?
on. It's easy for me.
Also a little bit of a coin toss, but I will say Pacific Ocean coastline beach walk, because every once in a while, if I get really, really, really stressed, like when your two kids are driving from Salinas, California to Cumberland, Maine, because one of them needs to win $271, you'll find me walking along the beach so I'm going to say beach.
Well, mine's mountains, and this has been evolved too. This will be a little bit of backstory, but my father-in-law, who was a really cool man, he loved the mountains. But I was raised in the front seat of the pickup with my dad going to rodeos. And what you don't like when you're driving a 1976 Chevy is mountains, because you've got a load on and you've got brakes and you get less fuel mileage. And so I was pretty much formed that you don't like mountains. You didn't even look at them. You just knew you had to go over them. And it was a real big problem. However, now, back to my father-in-law, he loved the mountains. That's the only place he went vacationing. Mountains, mountains, mountains. He'd say, look at those beautiful mountains, 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 mountains. Now that I spend a lot of time in Utah and I've taken on hiking and I have a back porch where I look at those really beautiful features and the weather, I'm going to go mountains. I love the beach. Again, it goes back to heat. You're sweating. There's sand. Sand gets in spots it's not supposed to be where it is. I love the sound of the beach and I love the breeze on the beach, but I'll pick mountains. So what did we end up being? Yeah. What is
I was gonna say, it looks like you guys are you guys are associates. You were almost good friends, but I think there's a couple you guys were close on. You guys could have, gone either way on these, but the test says you guys are associates. So I guess you guys have to keep duking it out, though.
Well, that's great. Any final thoughts, Kendra or Greg? Otherwise, I thought that was kind of fun. Annoyed Kendra.
That gets an eye roll out of me in general. Nobody cares.
Yes, they do care. People do care. It's fun conversation. People are listening to this going, I like water, I like tea, or that's about what I thought. Tommy Joe would say that. That's why I don't like him.
Maybe I'll post the test and we'll see how many people want to go on and see how they relate to each of you guys.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us for episode 61 of No Spin Rodeo. I do want to shout out, unfortunately, I lost my niece, Brooklyn Lucia, 25 years old, to a very serious disease called diabetes. Pray for her and us and our family as we go through this, and take care of yourself. Diabetes is a real thing. God bless all of you. We'll see you in a week. This is No Spin Rodeo on behalf of Greg Teagarden and Kendra Santos. You guys have a blessed day.